Welcome to Citizens Reunited to Overcome Cancer, a show to make your survivorship an easier journey by providing information and advocating for you. A show to help practitioners and their level of performance. This is the CROC Podcast. Here is your host, Dr. E. And alongside him to share some hope and inspiration from the Have Faith, Let It Begin podcast, co-host Angel Santana.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the CROC Podcast. My name is Dr. Eanelli, and I am the host, the founder, and the skipper of this spirit ship we call Citizens Reunited to Overcome Cancer. Joining me, as always, is my co-pilot, my little brother, Mr. Angel Santana. Angel, welcome to one of my favorite modules, our Heroes Module.
I love the word hero. I think hero is the best word on the planet. And I feel like a hero because I am actually writing my notes on our brand new exclusive Citizens Reunited to Overcome Cancer pen. Let me know how you can get one. All it takes is for you to share it to a friend, download, and you can even get your own pen. We'll talk more about that. Dr. E, it's always a pleasure.
Oh, thank you, Angel. Yeah, I can't wait to begin. But just quickly, just some housekeeping. So when we talk about our Heroes Module, what Angel and I and the board of directors here at CROC try to do every week or every 2 weeks is give you guys information to assist you survive your survivorship. And it's really, I hope it's helpful to you to hear some of the things we research on your behalf or things we advocate on your behalf. But every once in a while, it's really nice to hear the story of a survivor, just like you guys out there listening, who might have an inspirational story to tell and is, in my book, a hero. And today's story is the story of a woman called Barbara. We'll call her Barbara. And it's for that segment of our survivorship population who are at the end of their rope. They are in a very, very dark and scary place, a place where they feel there's no way out. It's a place where there's no hope. Today's podcast, Barbara's story, is for the survivor who's listening from a hospital bed, who are stuck in their recliner because they just can't even walk the stairs to get to their bed. They might be in an infusion treatment chair, or they could be in a room that's filled with feeding tubes and drainage tubes and IV poles and ventilators and walls covered. You all know this when you've been in the hospital, covered with monitors that are screaming and beeping and making all of this noise. And it's a story, it's a podcast for the survivor who's sitting in that waiting room with that terrible knot in their stomach. You know what I'm talking about, that knot when you're fearful and when something is going wrong. And it's a podcast for anybody that's living in that terrifying neighborhood of exhaustion, of fear, of despair, and that room of hopelessness. This is Barbara's story, and it's one of the most inspiring cancer journeys I've ever witnessed. It's a story of a woman who looked death in the face, endured what most of us can barely imagine, and somehow came out the other end. But this podcast is more than just a story of inspiration. It's more than a story of hope. It's a story, really, of all of our heroes and hero stories. It's really more of a roadmap. It's a beacon. It's a lighthouse for our survivors who have been swept up into those treacherous waters of cancer. And they need something, they need someone to throw them a line and get them to safety. Barbara's story starts when she was only 36 years old and someone told her, guess what? You have breast cancer. And at 36, the last thing you're thinking about is cancer. You're thinking about who has to do Thanksgiving this year. You're thinking about the kids and their activities and all your responsibilities and your work. And all of a sudden you have to step out of life and take care of that. And that's exactly what she did. She survived breast cancer, but that was just the beginning of her story. Many, many years later, cancer came for her again. This time it was cancer of the head and neck. Now, we talk about this on this podcast. We talk a lot about head and neck cancer. It's not just one disease. It's a family of cancers that can arise anywhere. It could arise in the mouth, in the tongue, in your throat, in your voice box, in your salivary glands, in your nose, your nasal passages. These are the areas that give us the ability to breathe, the ability to speak, to swallow, to chew, to taste, to smile, and to recognize ourselves in a mirror. That geography is what makes these cancers so uniquely different and so uniquely difficult. In the head and neck, the cancer, and unfortunately sometimes the treatments, can affect the very things we use to communicate, the things we use to nourish ourselves, and the things that we connect with other human beings. Eating, for example, is not simply taking in calories. Eating is Thanksgiving. Eating is birthday cake. Eating is drinking coffee and a donut with your spouse. It's breaking bread with the people you love. Speaking is not merely making sound. It's saying, I love you. It's telling a joke. It's asking for help. And our face is not just anatomy. Our face is our identity. And these are all things that are taken away from the head and neck cancer patient, if only temporarily. Depending on the location, your stage, the treatments may involve surgery, radiation, chemotherapy, immunotherapy, or combinations of all of these treatments. And even when everything is performed correctly, even when the entire team and the patient do everything they're supposed to do, the road can be brutal. Your mouth can become sore, saliva can become thick or disappear entirely. Taste can change, taste can vanish. Swallowing can hurt. Your jaw can become so stiff you can't even open your mouth. Food will lose all of its pleasure. Your weight will just melt off of your bones. Fatigue will become overwhelming. Some patients will need a feeding tube, not because they did anything wrong or because they failed, but because their body just needs a bridge while it's beginning to heal. And healing could be slow and it could be very painful. So one of the cruelest things about cancer treatment is that even though the calendar might say your treatment is finished, and long before everybody agrees, your body doesn't agree that you're done, even though you're done. Everybody celebrates the last treatment, and rightfully so. You should. We ring the bell together. We take the picture. We hug. We tell you, you did it. But sometimes the survivor goes home and thinks, did what? What exactly did I do? I still feel terrible. In head and neck cancer, symptoms can continue and may sometimes intensify, even way past when treatment ends, months and months and months later. Your tissues, they're inflamed, your nerves, your muscles, your swallowing mechanisms, your saliva, your taste, your strength, and your confidence are destroyed. And recovery is not a light switch. It's like a sunrise on a cloudy morning. The light comes slowly, it comes unevenly, and sometimes you're not even sure it's going to come at all. And that's where Barbara was. She endured her treatment day by day, inch by inch. She was beginning to feel a little better. She was beginning to believe that perhaps the worst was behind her. And then at about 6 months after treatment, the inconceivable happened. Before she had even come close to healing from the brutal chemo and radiation, she recurred. She recurred right in the epicenter of her treatment. Her cancer returned. Before she even had a chance to recover fully from the first battle, she was told she had to fight another battle. And this was not a little tune-up. It was not a minor setback. She required an enormous operation, one of those extraordinary reconstructive surgeries that reminds you how destructive cancer can be and how remarkable modern surgery can be. The surgeons had to remove major tissue and then essentially rebuild the inside of her mouth and rebuild her face. They had to use part of her shoulder, her scapula, her shoulder blade, along with the muscle, the tissue, the blood vessels, and transferred it to reconstruct what the cancer and surgery had taken away. Think about that. Think about the magnitude of that. Bone from the shoulder used to rebuild the face. Living tissue moved from one part of the body to another part. Tiny, tiny blood vessels reconnected so the transplanted tissue could survive. Human anatomy dismantled and rebuilt in an effort to preserve Barbara's life. And then Barbara had to begin all over again. She had to relearn how to talk. She had to relearn how to swallow. She had to relearn how to chew. She had to rediscover taste. She had to adapt to a mouth, a face, and a body that no longer worked or felt exactly the way they had before. I'm going to be honest with you. I'm not sure I could have done it. I think I might have given up, and I hope I would not have. We all like to imagine ourselves as brave, but it is easy to be courageous, sitting, in a white coat, talking to a patient behind a desk, talking to survivors in a microphone for a podcast. But it's a whole different story when you have to wake up after a massive operation in pain with a tracheostomy in place, a feeding tube, unable to speak, unable to swallow, and realizing that your life is on the line. I don't know where Barbara found the strength. I don't know if it was her faith or it was her love or if it was her family. It could have just been Darwinian survival instinct. It could have been stubbornness. But it was her decision to just take one breath and then take another breath. I bet you Barbara doesn't even know how she did it. Real courage rarely arrives with trumpets. Most of the time, courage looks very ordinary. It looks like just getting out of bed when you don't want to. It could look like just going to speech therapy again. It could look like just trying to swallow. It could look just like crying, but just continuing anyway. And Barbara may not have felt courageous, but she behaved courageously, one small decision at a time. And this is exactly the point of today's podcast. Every cancer survivor listening needs to understand that there are dangerous moments during cancer recovery. Certainly, there are dangerous medical moments, but there are also dangerous emotional moments. And one of the most dangerous is the moment when suffering convinces you that suffering is permanent. It is that moment when suffering convinces you that the cancer is going to beat you. And it's that suffering, it's that pain that begins to speak to you like a prophet. Fatigue tells you that you will never have energy again. A feeding tube tells you that you will never enjoy a meal again. And a tracheostomy tells you you will never speak again in your own voice. One bad scan tries to convince you that every future scan will be bad. The suffering is real. I do not mean to minimize it, but suffering is a terrible fortune teller. What you feel today may be real, but it's not forever. This is the space where Barbara's lesson lies. Recovery is not always a straight line. It could be slow, it could be uneven, it could be unfair, and it could be filled with setbacks. There can be progress followed by disappointment, healing followed by recurrence, a good day followed by 3 awful days. But a setback is not automatically the end of the story. Hope does not mean pretending everything is fine. Hope does not mean denying the pain. And hope is not a guarantee of cure. And it is not some sugary demand that you smile through agony so everybody else feels comfortable. Hope is simply leaving room for the possibility that the chapter you are living today may not be your final chapter. I saw Barbara about 2 months ago, and that's what inspired today's podcast. She looked absolutely ravishing. She looked amazing. She had makeup on. The tracheostomy was out. The feeding tube was out. She was tasting. She was swallowing. She was enjoying her food. She was gaining weight. She was gaining strength. And she had relearned how to talk, how to communicate. She was making plans. Do you know how big that is? She was joyful. She was thankful. And she was cancer-free. And I asked her straight up, I said, Barbara, how in God's name did you endure what you endured? How did you make your way into hell and then escape from hell? What is your secret? I have to share this on this podcast with Angel. And she took a moment and she paused, and a small tear began running down her cheek. And she told me, my journey is not a formula. My journey is not a recipe. My journey is not a promise. My journey is an invitation. It's an invitation not to let despair pretend that it knows the ending of your story. It's an invitation not to look too far ahead, not to demand that you conquer years. Just conquer the next hour. And if the next hour is too much, just conquer the next 10 minutes. If you can't drink a whole glass of water, just take a sip. If you can't walk a mile, just walk a step. If you don't feel like going to therapy, you go to therapy. If you are fearful of your next dressing change because it hurts so much, get the dressing changed. Get to your next appointment. If you need help, ask for help. Let someone carry hope for you when you cannot carry it yourself. She said, lastly, sometimes hope is not something you manufacture. Sometimes hope is something you borrow. Today, Angel and I are borrowing hope from Barbara. You do not have to be inspirational today. You do not have to teach anybody a lesson. You do not have to wear a brave face every minute. Your only job is to remain in the story, your story, because perhaps one day, without even realizing it, your story will become that roadmap, that beacon, that lighthouse for somebody else, another survivor sitting in that dark place that you sat in. And I don't think Barbara knew she was going to become an inspiration to our survivors. I do not even know whether she believed she was going to make it and survive, but she did. And that is the point of today's podcast. At 36, she faced breast cancer. Decades later, she faced head and neck cancer twice. She endured the treatment, a devastating recurrence, an enormous reconstructive operation, and the long work of learning how to speak, swallow, chew, taste, and live. Today, at 74 years old, Barbara is still here. Not untouched, not unchanged, but here. And sometimes that is what a miracle looks like. Not lightning from the sky, not a movie ending with swelling music. Sometimes a miracle is one more swallow, one more sentence, one more meal with someone you love, one more birthday, one more morning when you open your eyes and discover that the story is still being written, your story. Barbara, we thank you. We thank you for your courage, your grit, and the lesson you probably never intended to teach. And to every survivor listening, please hold the line. The page you're on is not the whole book. Do not allow today's suffering to write tomorrow's final sentence. Angel Santana, your thoughts?
We're very blessed to be a part of the CROC Podcast. And we're blessed because we get to hear these stories. We're not saying that, or I'm not saying that I am happy that these people would encounter these horrific journeys, but they say that there are reasons why people are here on earth. And what we heard today is that Barbara is the real reason why we have the title hero, why we have a title called immaculate person, because there's no greater story than the one we just heard, and no more inspiring than hearing about her and what she went through. There's no other words we can state except for wow, amazing. And I just think that one day, if she's up to it, I would love to hear her come on this show if she ever feels it, because I think that that's something that we owe it to our audience to hear from her mouth. And I'm speechless. I'm not going to lie to you. There's no other words I can say other than that.
Angel, thank you for your sincere thoughts, and I agree entirely. We are absolutely enhanced by people like Barbara, and our Heroes modules are all real stories, none of it manufactured. It's just you guys doing what you guys do, survive. So to put conclusion today's episode, we will end with our CROC blessing on behalf of Angel Santana, the entire board of Citizens Reunited to Overcome Cancer, and of course, our hero today, Barbara. We wish all of our survivors who are out there fighting the fight, who are in those dark spaces, who do not know if today will be their last day. I can promise you, just hold the line and remember Barbara's story. We wish you nothing but the best. We wish you a long, healthy, happy, cancer-free life. God bless you. God be with you. Peace.
Hey, CROC Nation, if today's message inspired you, please subscribe, download, and share this episode with your friends or someone who you believe needs it. Visit us at crocvip.com to connect, learn, and join the fight. Let's spread hope, one story at a time. Until next time, remember, we are not just a podcast, we are a movement.